G'day guys, welcome back to the Rugby League Guru podcast. A pretty short and sharp episode coming your way for Finals Week 2, Team List Tuesday. Only the two games on this weekend and the four teams playing, the Penrith Panthers and the Melbourne Storm, with their feet up this week, ready for next week. We've got two games coming your way this weekend, four teams. Kathmandu, what is our first game that we've got coming our way?
First game is on Friday, the 20th of September. Kickoff at 7:50 p.m. and the Sharks are hosting the Cowboys, but it's at Allianz Stadium.
Yeah, we had this discussion on Bloke the other day, if you guys are keen to have a listen to that, about whether the Sharkies should be playing at Shark Park or whether they should be at Allianz. Really interesting point of views there. Hammy actually brought up the point that the Sharks haven't played at Allianz Stadium in like 2.5 years or something like that. So for some of these guys, they're playing their first ever game at this stadium, which is a bit of a tough trot in my opinion. Let's go through Craig Fitzgibbon's side for this sudden death game. At fullback, Will Kennedy. Bit of a mixed bag last week. Obviously had a disaster off the kickoff, but outside of that, I thought Will Kennedy was pretty good throughout the game. Sione Katoa on the right wing, Mulatalo on the left wing, looking to make up for his poor performance last week. The centres, Kale Iro named at left centre at the moment. Right centre as it stands, same as last week, Sifa Talakai, but it should be noted Jesse Ramian is on the extended bench. I think if Jesse Ramian is fit and available, he comes straight into this side. And I think they really missed Talakai through the middle as well, the Sharkies. So a double gain there. We assume Ramian will run out. 5'8", Braden Trindle. 7, Nico Hines. In the front row, another guy probably looking to make up for a reasonably poor performance by his standards last week. Toby Rudolph, he's partnered by Oregon Corfusi. Blake Brayley wears jersey 9. Britt Nikora and Teague Wilton for Craig Fitzgibbon on the edges, and Cam McInnes in jersey 13. He got off the bus and looked like he'd been in 14 street fights the other night. Cam McInnes went through the absolute ringer. On the bench, Dan Atkinson, Jack Williams, Royce the Choice Hunt, and Tommy Hazelden. Their extended bench, the only guy I can see coming into this side is Jesse Ramian, and after their middles were dominated last week, I wouldn't be shocked to see Hamlin Welle potentially come into this side as well. But Jesse Ramian, I think you can lock him into the centres. I think you can lock Sifa Talakai to come off the bench, in which case probably a Jack Williams or a Royce Hunt drops off. They might decide to drop Dan Atkinson off. Maybe that is what they do the more I think about it. But some interesting decisions for Craig Fitzgibbon there. I think they'll do well to get Sifa Talakai back through the middle. Let's have a look at Toddy Payton's side for the North Queensland Cowboys. At fullback, their superstar, Scott Drinkwater. On the wings, Kyle Felt, potentially his last game in the NRL. He had a blinder last week. On the other wing, Murray Tuolangi, also a good game last week. Val Holmes and Valia in the centres for the Cowboys. Tommy Dearden, the skipper, at 5'8". And Jake Clifford, what a story to see him being the halfback for the North Queensland Cowboys over Chad Townsend, playing against the club that Chad won a premiership for, the Cronulla Sharks. Jakey Clifford at halfback in this game, the biggest game of his career so far, by far and away. Let's have a look at the forward pack for Toddy Payton. Jordan McLean lines up in the front row with Jason Taumalolo. Reece Robson, an incredible year he's had in jersey 9. The edges, so much attacking prowess here. Helam Lukey on the left edge, Jeremiah Nanai on the right, and my boy Ruben Cotter, one of the co-captains of this side, in jersey 13. The bench for the Cowboys, our boy Sam McIntyre, Harrison Edwards, Finay Fuiaki, and Griffin Neem. Still got Jackson Purdue on the extended bench in jersey 18. Outside of that, guys, Chad Townsend, McKaylee, Braden Burns, Tommy Chester. I'm not seeing any changes to that Cowboys side, but keep an eye on Jesse Ramian. If he is fit and available, he has to come in for Craig Fitzgibbon. The second game, Saturday night, Kat, what do we got?
Another spicy affair, the Roosters versus the Manly Seagulls. This one, like you said, is Saturday at 7:50 p.m. It is also at Allianz Stadium. Talk us through the Roosters.
2 games at Allianz Stadium in 2 nights. How good is that? For the Roosters, Trent Robinson's side, James Tedesco at fullback, the skipper on the wings, Dom Young and Daniel Tupu. Both having games against the Penrith Panthers this last week that they would like to forget. I'm expecting big games from both of those two. Su'Ali and Joey Manu potentially playing their last games in the NRL, both going to rugby union at the end of this season. Luke Keary, very similar, potentially playing his last game in the NRL as well at 5'8". Sandon Smith wears jersey 7, another guy who had a bit of a shocker last week. Defensively, he was all over the place, Sandon Smith. I'm sure he'll be very keen to make up for that. He'll be in for a big one. The big in for the Sydney Roosters, and maybe the biggest in of the entire weekend, Jared Waria-Hargraves lining up in the front row for the Sydney Roosters. You talk about spiritual leaders that don't come much bigger and badder than JWH for the Sydney Roosters, an enormous in. He'll partner Lindsay Collins in the front row. Connor Watson wears jersey 9. On the edges, Angus Crichton and Sitili Tupanua. Another guy, Sitili, potentially playing the last game of his Roosters career, along with JWH. And Naf White, he gets the nod in jersey 13. Now, he started there against the South Sydney Rabbitohs 2 weeks ago. He missed a couple of really crucial tackles. He was hooked and he was only put on with about 10 minutes to go. Nat Butcher started there last week, but I thought when White came on, he was very, very impressive and he's done enough to win that jersey back off Nat Butcher. Trent Robinson's made a big decision there. Coming off the bench, we have got our boy Siwa Wong, joined by Spencer Leniu, Nat Butcher and Terrell May. That Roosters bench, there is a lot of explosiveness there. It's going to be a big test for the Manly Seagulls. Their extended bench guys, Zach Docker-Clay, Pauga, Blake Steep, Michael Jennings, but the big one in jersey 22, Victor the Inflictor Radley. As we said, their forward pack and bench already looks tremendous. If you put Victor back in there, you would probably see Sitili Tupanua drop back to the bench, and then you'd have to make a decision. Nat Butcher, Wong, or Sitili Tupanua. Tough one to make. Obviously, Zach Docker-Clay drops out of the side this week as well, so they'll back Connor Watson to go the distance there. A big decision for Trent Robinson, what he does there if Victor Radley is available. Let's have a look at Anthony Seibold's side. Going into this game at fullback, Tom Trbojevic, I think it's fair to say he was probably at 40 or 50% this week. They need Turbo to have an enormous game in this one to give themselves a sniff. Tommy Talau lines up on one wing. Lehigh Opawade, big theme of this week. A lot of guys looking to make up for very poor performances last week. Lehigh Opawade at the top of that list. I'll tell you what I took from that game though. Kid was having an absolute shocker and he didn't hide away from anything. That tells you a lot about guys. It's not very often you get to see guys have their worst games and you learn a lot about them during that period and the week after. I think we learned a lot about Lehigh this week. Kohler and Ruben Garrick in the centres. Kohler obviously coming off the biggest moment of his career last week, the match winner against the Canterbury Bulldogs. Luke Brooks playing in his second finals game ever. 1 from 1, a 100% record for Brooksy. We absolutely love to see it, and some big plays in the back end of that game last week. DCE, the 7 and the skipper, an enormous try last week to put his side in front. We get to the forward pack now. Taniela Paseka and Matty Lodge line up in the front row. Both were great last week. Lockie Croker wears jersey 9. Olakwatu, who was enormous last week, he went absolute millions. And Carl Lawton over on the left side. Gerbo, the States skipper, lining up in jersey 13 for the Manly Seagulls. Coming off the bench, his younger brother, Ben Trbojevic, Josh Allier, Ethan Bullemore, and Nathan Brown. Very keen to see him go around in finals footy. I believe the last time Nathan Brown played finals footy was when he got the recall for the Parramatta Eels in the 2022 NRL Grand Final. A great story to see him all the way back there. The extended bench, you've got Forlalo, Humphreys, Sipley, Chan Kum Tong, and Corey Waddell. I'm not seeing any changes for this Manly Seagulls side. I think they will go 1-17. The big talking points this week, guys. Victor Radley, will he feature in this one or not? And Jesse Ramian for the Cronulla Sharks. Those are the spots you need to keep an eye out for this week when it comes to team lists. I'm sure we'll get an update during the week from both clubs. Dare I say, Radley and Jesse Ramian, they don't come much tougher than these two. I'm tipping if they're on the team list, they will feature this week. So plenty to watch out for. 2 cracking games coming your way this weekend. Sudden death footy. It's all on the line. Guys, the catch-up will drop at 7 p.m. tonight on Rugby League Guru YouTube right here. You can tune in there. We've got NRL Roast joining myself and Kat tonight for a fantastic chat about content in 2024 and his journey. It's an absolute cracker. And then tomorrow we got plenty more content coming your way on the Rugby League Guru podcast.